episode 5 of our slab stacking game, guys. We're almost done. Today is going to be a very short episode, hopefully. We've got two things to fix. One error that we had in the previous episode was the spawning of the new slab was in the wrong position, so we're going to go and fix that. I figured it out. And another one is we need to, well, let me show you. Let's jump in and see. So this is what we had in our previous episode. So this is the first bug that we had. So first of all, okay, how am I going to explain this? Because I've changed a few things here that, like this. This is just to demonstrate where our spawner is. So this is our spawner here, and I've just drawn this gizmos around it so you can actually see where it is. So if you want to do that, all you have to do is just type in these 3 lines of code, and then you will get that. So just pause the screen on that and you can see, if you type that into your slab spawner class, you'll get the actual position where your spawner is. And we only did that at least I only did that so that I can actually see where our slabs are going to be spawned into the game. So that was helpful because as soon as I did that, I noticed that our spawner was down here, rather it's supposed to be up here for it to actually work. So that is one way I actually figured out what was wrong with the game. But that's not the end of it. What we then had to do is we had to go and reposition it. So if we go and set this to be active, this is okay, let's go out of the game quick. So this is where we want this gizmos to actually be, where this slab over here is. So to do that, what I'm going to do is, because we don't really have to change anything in our code, or we just have to reposition this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our moving cube. First of all, I'm going to disable it because we don't really need it. Actually, I'm going to enable it because without it, actually, yeah, let's go disable it and I'll show you why we'll enable it later. So I'm going to go and copy the position of our moving cube for now. Then on our spawner, I'm simply going to go and paste the position. So that should put it in the exact position that we want it to be in. So now when we go and play the game, you'll see why I want to set it to be active, because as you can see, I've played the game, but nothing is actually happening until I click on the screen. And you can see that now our slab is actually getting spawned into the correct place, but it's still not going up onto the next level. So let's go and test this. So I'm going to go and set this to be active quickly, and then I'm going to play the game and just see if this actually works. So we get our first slab, so that works, it cuts it there. Okay, so that's working fine, that's what we want. But now we need to go and figure out, the next part of this video is going to go and figure out why it's not spawning the next slab, which if I pause it, it should be, ignore that long pieces because I let the slab go on forever. Why this slab, the next one, should be spawning up here, but it's not. And it's fairly simple, and the main reason is because we're not really telling anywhere in our code which is our previous slab. So when this slab here gets instantiated, well, it's in the scene for now, but at the start, but whenever we go and click on it and then we get rid of the overhang, we need to go and tell someplace in our code that this is now the next current cube, because if we don't, then we are always using this, the initial cube, because if we use this initial cube, we'll just keep adding the 0.1, I think it is, of the scale to our next slab, and it will always appear along this axis here at this value. Whereas if when we instantiate this into the scene, when we go and say the last cube is equal to this cube, then when we click on the game and it instantiates the next one, it will add the next value, which is 0.1 on it. So not that, let's go and not to the scale, it will add this like this. So it will go from 0.55 to 0.65, I think it is. So, and then from there it's going to go to 0.75 and then 0.85 and then 0.95 and then so on. Whereas if we don't do that, then everything will appear at 0.55, and then it's just going to be a mess, because I mean the game's not going to work. So let's go and do that. So before I do that, I'm going to go and I'm going to go put that back where it was, which is over there, I think. And then if we go into our code here, let us go to, where is it, in our moving cube. Whenever we go and stop the current cube, we want to go and set last cube is equal to this. So that is it. That should fix our problem. So let's go and play the game now, and you should see that if we stop the cube here, you can see that it goes up every time, which is fine, which is what we want. But we have a bit of a problem. You see, this is not really, the size of these cubes is not really what we want. So that's fine, but as soon as we no matter how many times we actually play the game and click on the the actual game, our starting or slab that is getting instantiated into the scene is not changing the size. So what we want is, as soon as we play the game there, let's just play this. So this slab over here should be the size of this slab, and it's not. So let's go and fix that. So to do that, in our, where we're going to do this, we are going to do this in, I think it's on enable here. So to do that, we need to go and change the scale of it. So we can go and say, I think it's transform.local scale is going to be equal to a new vector 3. So now for when we change the scale, the only scale that we want to change is, I believe it is, let me think about this. I know what it is, but I completely gone blank. It's going to be the Z scale, because the height of it is on the Y axis, which we don't want to change. We want that to be at, I believe, 0.1. The scale of the X axis is going to be the same, because we want it to be, hold on, let me just check something quick. What we want, I can show you here. Okay, let me do this quick. Okay, anyway, I'll fix that later. But what we do want is the x-axis, which is this from here to here, we want to stay the same, because we always want it to be the same width. And then the z-axis, which is this one, we want it to obviously change, because we want the size of the slab to change. And then the y-axis, which is this one, obviously we want the height of it to always be the same. So let's go and put that back, jump back into our code, and then over here, like I said, the x will be the same, so we can go and say transform.localScale.x, and then we want the next one is the y, which which we want to be the same, so we'll go and say transform.localScale.y, and the one we want to change is the z-axis. So here we can go and say our last cube dot transform dot local scale dot z. So I believe that should work, but let's go and find out. Go back into the game and play it, and hopefully that should sort out our little bit of our problem. So there we go. The slab is now changing size, which is good. So you can see that. Okay, we need to figure that out as well, because we don't want the slab to get bigger. So then we have a little bit of an issue over there. So let's go and try and figure that out. So I believe we can do something like this. So in our, where is it? On enable, I believe. No. Stop method here. We can go and say, before we calculate the direction of the hangover, or after we've calculated the hangover, we can go and check to see if the hangover is greater than the size of the previous slab. Then the game should be over, because that means the hangover piece is actually nothing, no part of it is sitting on top of your previous slab. And this is where I could use the screen brush, but let me try and explain it. If we have, say for example, we have this slab over here. If this slab hangover is greater than the previous slab, so take the length from this corner to this corner, which I believe is 1, and so is this one. This is 1, but the hangover is calculated from the edge of the cube to the edge of the other cube. So in this case, this hangover will be larger than 1. Where is it? It is over here. So this one, because it's not touching this cube, will be larger than 1. Whereas if it is like over here, because it is slightly touching it over, it's kind of intersecting with the previous one, the hangover will be less than this size. So that means that we do have a little bit of the current slab on top of our previous slab, which means the game is not finished. There is a little piece of a slab that you can use, and we can use to spawn the next one. Whereas if this was here, the entire block will fall off and the game should end. So let's go and set that back to where it was, which was there. Save that, and then let's go deal with that in our code. So here we can go and check to see if this hangover value is greater than the last z value. So let's go and say if the mathf.abs hangover, and that needs to be greater than or equal to the, I think it's the last cube dot transform dot local scale dot z, then we can go and, I hate it when it does that, that's why, because I didn't put the bracket. I keep forgetting to close my if statement. So we'll do that, and then in here we can go and say last cube is equal to null, but then we also want to go and say the current cube is going to be equal to null. And then we should just go and reload the scene so we can start the game all over again. So we go and say scene manager dot load. We got an error there because we need to go and import it. So load scene. I think we can just use 0 because we only have one scene in the game. So let's go and do an import. So copy and paste. We only need one. And then we'll go and say using Unity engine.scene management. So save that. That should get rid of the error, which it does. Now let's go and test this out. And after this should be it for today's episode. So hopefully this works so we can finish. So let's play the game and see what happens. So we get a little bit of a hangover. So now let's go and see. Okay, so you can see that the game does reset because as soon as we calculate that massive hangover, you can see the actual slabs on top of our initial cube go and get reset. They're no longer in the scene. So that is fine. That's working nicely. So what we do need to do in the next episode probably is work on a menu as well as some sort of score indicator, because we don't want the game to restart straight away. We want to have like a pop-up menu that you can choose if you want to start the game or end the game. Not that we need to, but it's nice to have in the game, just so that it doesn't feel like the game's constantly being played. And then we also want to go and add in a score indicator. So whenever you go and stop the cube, as long as you don't have, or as long as you do have some kind of cube on top, or slab on top of the previous one, which means the game is going to continue on to the next stage, or the next cube or next slab will get instantiated into the game, we will go and add an extra point to your points tally. So in other words, each slab that gets instantiated into the scene is going to be a single point. So that is what we will be working on probably in our next episode. So if you're enjoying this game series, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you probably tomorrow, depending on if it's a weekend. Probably not. If it's Monday, then I'll see you tomorrow, or whenever this episode is, I'll see you then. But for now, that's it for today. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.